Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Healing Art After Hours. I'm Shauna Robeson with Creating Space Coastal, and in this video, I'm going to be introducing the art of collage, which can be incorporated in a variety of different ways, and I'm going to talk all about the origins of it and a little bit about some techniques, and I'll do a little bit of a presentation, but also we're going to do an exercise to practice some photo montage, and this is what I came up with, so you can see how I pulled that together out of a couple of magazines and some Costco ads. So I don't have a lot of magazines to work with, but if you want to see my process, stay tuned. Let's get started. Welcome to Healing Art Happy Hour. And our topic for the whole month is collage art. And so I just like to start off each month with an introduction to just give a background of collage art and talk a lot about the materials that we may be using tonight and throughout the month. So let's get started. So collage, it falls under mixed media, which is probably not a surprise to anybody. It includes glue and paper at minimum and can include a lot of other things. But, and so of course it falls under mixed media. Collage is from the French word coller, which I don't speak French, so I'm sorry if I'm butchering that, but which means to stick together or to glue. The term collage was first coined by Cubist artists in the early 20th century. However, collage has been around, of course, you know, the act of gluing things together has been around longer than that. But I'm not going to say it French. George Braque, which is the English pronunciation, and Pablo Picasso are some of the first artists that included collage in their fine art. And it's created, of course, by combining images, printed material, found objects with adhesive, and then putting it into your art. It can be interpreted in a lot of ways, but allows artists to experiment upcycling existing materials like magazines, newsprint, etc., to create new works of art. And it was considered in its day cutting-edge novelty craft art. And it challenged the importance that was placed on the artist's hands in making of original art. So it allowed people that maybe didn't have that manual dexterity for drawing or painting, but maybe they have the artistic eye and the aesthetic skill to put things together in a pleasing way. And this just allowed those people to be able to contribute to the art community. So I think it really opened the doors for a lot of new artists in many ways. And this is an example of one of the first ones by George Braque, or George Bach, I think is pronounced, where he added wallpaper to his art. And there are 4 subgenres, although some of this is debated, but papier-collé, which is my pronunciation of the French, but is pasted paper. And that subgenre only includes paper, and typically it's not necessarily photography, although it could be portions of paper that are an image, but it's broken up so much that you really don't see the image so much as the design that you create with it. So it's more of like paper piecing, and it only includes paper. Decoupage, which is argued to be more of a craft by some people, is layering paper onto a subject, like in this case, an art jewelry box, or it could be furniture or things like that. So it's more like you're decorating something else by using paper pieces, and then they're laid down in a collage and varnished over to a polished finish. So that's typically what you would see with decoupage. Photomontage is where you take images created by other, photo artists, and you put them together in different new ways. You transform them into something that's different than what it was. And assemblage includes the 3D images. So it's like our 3D elements. So anything that you can glue onto a canvas, which can be just about anything if you have the right adhesive. In this case, I have actual paintbrushes, I have a tube of glue, I have a golf ball that I cut in half, I have sand, I have a little bit of everything in this particular collage. So really, if you can glue it down and it's going to stay there, you can create an assemblage collage out of it. And this is an example of Picasso's, and this one's an example of the papier-collé, which is using paper. And why collage, you ask? Well, like with the other meditative art processes, it's relaxing, it's meditative, it's fun to do, tearing paper. There's something therapeutic about tearing paper. But I also think that one of the things that's great about collage is the accessibility, because almost anyone can do it. If you're able to tear or cut and glue, you can do it. Now, because it focuses, like I said before, more on the aesthetic ability, your ability to see things and how they, work together, than it does on the artistic dexterity of being able to paint or draw or other things. So I think it makes it a little bit more accessible, especially for new artists who are developing their artistic eye. It doesn't require you to have those strong other skills yet, and you can develop those as you go along. It also allows you to upcycle materials, which I always love to do. I always like to be able to, keep things out of our landfills as much as possible. And it's a creative way to display memorabilia. There are no rules, really. It's low risk, low cost, because oftentimes you can use materials that you can find around the house, including the recycle bin. It also is a way that you can explore, do self-exploration and expression. It's a nonverbal outlet to process thoughts and emotions, just like any art is. But this art is as well, because you're able to connect with those images and really develop from what's inside and present it on the outside, even though you didn't actually create those images, the original images. You're developing your own image. You can develop creative intuition and personal style just by seeing what you're drawn to, what you tend to choose. You can start to find, what is your artistic voice. It also expands mental pathways, because you get to look at things that are maybe mundane and everyday things, but then you can create new ways to look at them, like create some surrealism by putting things that just don't normally go together, but you can put them together in juxtaposition. So that's really fun as well. It can be a standalone art, or it can be combined with other mediums, any kind of pigmented medium, or it can be used as an inspiration. So maybe you come up with a collage out of magazines or pre-printed materials, and then you, from that could be your inspiration that you then paint or draw from. So it can be either the art, or it can be an inspiration for art. Now, I've posted the supply list online, and many of you probably already have downloaded it. And you can see there are lots of options, and I'm going to talk a little bit about those. I'm also going to show what I have after we finish the presentation. But obviously you need a surface. Just about any surface will do, depending on what you're going to be putting on it. So if you're using a drier medium, you can do, it could be on a composition notebook. If you're doing a real wet medium, of course, you need a little bit more durable material. You may want something that's at least watercolor, or even canvas or wood if you're putting 3D materials on there. So I'll talk a little bit about that more later. But the surface really depends on what you're going to be doing. The collage material also can depend, pretty much anything you can glue down. And I have the suggestion list coming up. Cutting tools can be anything from just tearing to a ruler. You can do tearing with a ruler. If you want to tear straight edge, you can use scissors. I'll show you my favorite ones, which are the spring-loaded by Fiskars. Those are great for fussy cutting, and fussy cutting is when you're cutting really detail around an object or a picture. So it really allows you to get into those little details very easily. You can also use a craft knife on a cutting mat, and like an X-Acto knife or a scalpel or any kind of cutting tool. And I'll show you a couple of options that I have too. Adhesive also depends on what you are gluing on. So it depends on the material you're gluing onto and what you're gluing it onto. So if you're gluing it onto just really thin paper, like in a composition notebook, a glue stick is nice because it's pretty dry, so it's not going to cause a lot of buckling for the paper. As you get more moisture and more moisture, you want to use thicker and thicker and more durable material. So just keep that in mind. And then, of course, if you're doing the three-dimensional items, the glue gun or the E6000 is a real popular glue for gluing things onto canvas, for example, or you can glue it onto wood as well. Now, my favorite for if I'm doing a kind of a wet medium and I'm working with acrylics is the acrylic gel medium matte, and that's functions similar like Mod Podge, but Mod Podge is designed for decoupage. It has a little bit of varnish in, so it always dries a little bit shiny. Even the matte dries a little bit shiny. So if you're putting it into a journal, sometimes the pages can stick together and that can damage your journal pages. And so if you do use the Mod Podge, and even with acrylic gel, I would say you might want to put a varnish over the top just to really harden those pages so they don't stick together, or let them cure, let it cure for a longer time. But the acrylic gel is a little bit more durable. And also the acrylic gel comes in different thicknesses. So there's the more liquid one, and then there's the more gel, and then there's heavy gel. So depending on the thickness of whatever you're trying to glue down, you'll use heavier bodied medium. For example, if I'm trying to put something down that's really three-dimensional, maybe like silk flowers or things like that, I would be better off with a more heavy gel medium as opposed to the thin, because I can really get that glue to build up against the item I'm trying to glue down. Same with using the glue gun with heavier items. It's a little bit more three-dimensional itself and allows you to stick on those more heavier items. Now, in choosing a substrate, there's two things to think about. You want to think about the collage materials, but also the pigmented medium. So let's start with looking at the collage materials. If it's lightweight, you're just gluing on magazine, newsprint, ephemera, just real, thin paper to maybe a lightweight cardstock, you can use pretty much any paper. So that composition notebook is fine. You can use print paper, whatever is, that's going to work fine. If you're going to be building it up a little bit using flat materials, but maybe thicker or heavier, like some cloth and things like that, you might need a heavier bodied adhesive. And so you want a heavier bodied substrate. So you want something that's a little bit heavier, maybe like chipboard. You could even use cereal boxes, heavy cardstock, or watercolor, especially if you're going to be using a watery colored medium to embellish with. So a wet adhesive includes the white glue, Mod Podge, and acrylic medium. Those are the three common wet adhesives. And then the 3D materials you would want to use maybe on canvas or wood panel or other durable surface, and you would want to use the hot glue or the E6000 or an epoxy glue. That's like a two-part epoxy, any of those heavy duty. Now, a lot of the glues will tell you what it's good for. So depending on what you're gluing, you'll be able to look at the label and find out if it's good for that, if you're using something that I can't think of. If you're choosing a substrate based on the other art medium that you're using, that was in the list that I had online. And that's what I was talking about here. Is a dry medium would be like, colored pencils, graphite, pastels, ink, those things. A damp medium where you'd want at least a mixed media type paper would be watercolor pencils, markers, water soluble pastels, spray inks, things that are somewhat wet, but they're not runny wet. And then the wet mediums would include acrylics, watercolors. Now, alcohol markers, they can work on just about anything, but they work best on a smooth, more non-porous surface. And so depending on where you're putting it, maybe if you're putting it on top of the art, it doesn't matter, what the substrate is as much. But if you want to do some drawing as well with the alcohol markers, you're going to want more of a smooth surface to work with for drawing around your collage. And then fountain pen is also kind of one of those unique things. They work best on a more smooth surface if you're doing a lot of calligraphy or things like that. So just having the right paper that's going to work with whatever your art medium is. Now, I have also a list of lots of ideas for collage materials papers. This is an example of one I did with all wallpaper. So all of these were flowers cut out from different wallpaper, and this wallpaper is from like the 70s, so it was like 40-year-old at the time. And I thought it was just really fun to put together this crazy collage of this old wallpaper. But you can use, like I said, anything that's of a paper product will work. And then you can also use fibers. In this case, I used a zipper because this was a little tent that I created for, it was a couple that they do a lot of camping and it was a wedding gift. So I have a little picture of them in the tent kissing. And then this was a little, I used some gauze for the screen. And of course you can't really see them very well through that, and I used a little zipper. So be creative. You can use, like I said, anything you can glue down. Now the tent itself was paper, but I just glued the fabric. And once I added that gel medium, that acrylic gel medium, it really makes the paper a lot more durable. And I put some string in there in the back as well. So had a lot of fun with some fabrics in that one. And then I talked a little bit about, oh, 1 second. Okay. And then of course, anything you can glue, I mean, from golf balls to, you know, nuts and bolts, you can glue down. Just make sure that your substrate can handle it. This is a canvas, so I couldn't do probably a lot of heavy metal type things, but if you have a wood substrate, you can really put just about anything on it as long as you have strong enough glue. So all those little, the drawers that collect all those little miscellaneous things, think about if there's ways that you could glue those into a project and make it, you know, make it work. And then I have some ideas that we're going to play around with when we do some collage this month, but just some ways that you could go about doing some of these various genres of collage. So for photomontage, one example is you take a subject and you cut out a portion of it. So in this case, I cut out her little glasses, and then I put them on her glasses here. In the cutout, I put her underneath so you could see her sunglasses. I put her eyes underneath, and then I kind of put a half and half, like the glasses and the eyes. And I decided to use this for my collage piece. So you'll see that in a little bit. But so basically you're cutting out or cutting off. You could even take the whole head off and maybe put some kind of interesting animal head or a statue or anything, but you're basically modifying the original by taking a portion of it out and then replacing it with something different. So that's the idea. So cut out and replace is one fun thing you can do. You can also fracture. So this is taking an object and just cutting it in various different ways. You can cut it in squares or rectangles or whatever. I did pie pieces, and then spread them out so that they're in the same orientation, but there's a space between them. So I call that fracture. And these aren't official terms. I don't know if there are official terms for these concepts, but this is just a fun way to sort of explode out an item. You could even do them, I call it shatter, if you rotate these items not in the original orientation. So you can either fracture it, keeping them the same way, or you could rotate them all around and make it more like an explosion or shatter. You can also just do juxtaposition, which means that you take something that's normally not that size or doesn't go naturally with that. So for example, I use these butterfly wings, which are normally very tiny, and I put them on as wings for these ladies. It's not that exciting or that surreal, but it's, you know, just highlights that it's just something that's not normal what you would see. This is another example of that. You know, this is a pocket watch that's giant, and then this is of course this dragonfly, which is usually very tiny, is bigger, almost bigger than the bird cage. And this is normally very, very tiny. So just taking things, you can do it based on, you know, size. You could do it based on just, are they typically found next to each other? It can be based on mood or color, just finding ways to create some contrast to catch attention by, you know, putting those things next to each other. And then this one I just call mosaic. It reminds me of just creating mosaics out of tiles. And you just basically cut up using more about the texture, the color, rather than what it is. So in this case, I just found anything that was reddish, and I just cut them into little strips and formed them into a heart. And I found maybe this was a piece of an arm or something, but I just basically put together, I think this might have been, I think that was brick or something. So it's things that aren't what I'm using them for, but they looked similar in color or in texture. And I put them together in a mosaic to create something else. So think of them, you can think of it as pixels too. You could get in even smaller pieces and get really detailed if you want. But just think of them as the pieces of whatever the bigger project is. And I have some ideas for trying out a project with this. We'll be doing not today, but this month, where we can put together something a little bit more complicated, but I think I have an easy way to do it. So we'll see if that works. And then of course there's hodgepodge of, you know, layers and mixed media and with other things, and just as an accent, or this is iris folding. So really it can be just about anything. And so we're going to be playing around with different things. Now, fun fact, Mod Podge does not rhyme with hodgepodge. And it took me a long time to not say Mod Podge, but it's actually Mod Podge. And I think the reason that we call it Mod Podge is because it kind of glues everything together, right? So it seems like it should be Mod Podge, but it is actually Mod Podge. So FYI. All right, now we're going to do an exercise. And I'm going to stop the presentation because I'll just walk you through it. But this is in here. If you do get the notes, you'll be able to follow these steps on your own. Before we do the exercise, I just want to talk you through a little bit of the materials that I have. And then that'll give you time to gather any materials that you might want. For cutting, you can use just regular scissors if you want. Those work just fine, but sometimes they can be tricky for details, but I know some people do. For my details, I really like these scissors. These are my spring loaded scissors. So all I have to do is squeeze and then let go, and it opens back up. So I don't have to always use the muscles to push the scissors open. And I think it reduces the fatigue, not to mention the fact that these blades are very, very tiny and they're very sharp. So you can really get into fine details very easily with these. So these are my fussy cutting scissors, and they do come with a little guard for the blade because they are very, very sharp. And then of course I have an X-Acto knife, which is very handy with a cutting mat. This is a cutting mat below, and this is nice for fine detail too. Sometimes I find I like this better, and sometimes I like this better, so it just depends on the project. But so an X-Acto knife is handy. Now this is this is an X-Acto knife basically, but, or I should say it's a Fisker's craft blade, but it's designed for for detail, so you can kind of put your finger through, so you can really control it a little bit better. And they do even have the blades that swivel, so if you really want control, you can use that. And then this is handy, and this is something that probably not many of you would have, but it's called Pick Me Up. And what it is on one end, it has basically it's like the kneaded eraser material inside this little housing. And you can, we can rotate it and it squeezes that material out, and it's sticky. So what's great about that is that it is wonderful for picking up little things. So it's great for sequins, or you can use it for beads or little pieces of paper. And you'll find that as you start working in collage, you get glue on your fingers, and it's hard to, it's easy to pick up paper when you have glue on your fingers, but it's hard to put it back down. So this makes it so that you can pick it up, but it's also fairly easy to put down. The other side is just a little, it's kind of like a flat poke tool, but it's just I think it's just to use it to pick up like paper stuck to the surface. You can kind of scoot it up with this little flat edge. There's a sharp edge on this side, but I don't use this side as much. I use this, which is an art pick, and this is pretty sharp here. And I'll use this to maybe hold something down if I'm trying to glue it. And then I can use this to pick it up, or I can use this to push it off of this tool. So those are handy. If you don't have one of these, you can always take a little like a ball head pin or something like that, and stick a little bit of that kneaded eraser on the end of it, and then you can stick it in the back of an eraser and make your own tool. You can also put, if you have the dual glue, you could put a little bit of that glue on the end of something, and this is it'll dry tacky, and then you can use that as well. I think this glue does the same thing. It's a two-way glue. So if you let it dry without adhering anything to it, it'll just dry tacky. So it'll work the same way as that kneaded eraser material. You can also use poster tack as that as well. So that's very handy when you're doing small pieces. So if you're not going to be working with small pieces, don't worry about it. A pencil is handy. Sometimes you want to mark where things go. And a series of markers. I have metallic gel pens. I also like to use my Inktense, the Derwent Inktense water soluble colored pencils, but any medium. Your acrylic markers are great. Anything to do embellishments, and that's like a whole, any of your art materials for that will work. Watercolor, acrylics, anything. This is what the E6000 glue looks like after it's been used for a long time, but it does dry flexible. So it can work on things that maybe have a little bit of flex without breaking. The thing about hot glue gun is it's very stiff and brittle when dry. So if you have it on a flexible material and the material gets bent, it might, break or come off. It's not quite as flexible as this. So that's why it works great for some things. This one's great for details. This is a glue that's got a nib. You just can draw it on. So for smaller pieces of paper, that's pretty handy. You can also use a needle tip. Now my needle tip came off of this, but I put tacky glue in here, but the tacky glue is too thick for the needle tip. So I need to probably thin it out a little bit. But tacky glue is a very powerful glue. You can use that with cloths and things like that as well. It still has a fairly fine tip, and I just have to keep putting things in here to seal it. I don't really have I need to move the bottle, but move it into a different bottle, but I haven't. Now this is actually a washable glue stick that I got at a dollar store, I think, or something, but I use the permanent ones if I really care about it. If I was doing it for an art project, I would not use this washable one. So look for permanent if you're going to be doing it outside of a journal or things like that, and you want it to last a little bit better. I'm just trying to use up this because I have it. And this one is blue. So it goes on blue, but it dries clear. So I can see where it is, which is handy. Now, this is the Mod Podge matte that I also have available. And I have the matte medium. And this one is a little bit more fluid. It's acrylic matte medium. And I can add acrylic, I can add this to acrylic pigment if I want to if I want it to have any color with it as well. But it also acts as a glue. And then I also have a heavy, super heavy gel. This one's gloss though, and that one is matte. So this will dry in a gloss, but this is nice for if I have a thicker element to glue down. If I'm just trying out different things and I want to move stuff around and I'm not really ready to cement it down, I use these little squares. They're just like a double-sided tape kind of thing, like it's paper with adhesive on both sides, and it's not real sticky, so it's easy for me to pick it up and move it. So I'll just put this on the back of the pieces, move them around, get them where I want them, and then I'll put the final glue on. And that's real handy because sometimes I move it around, 4 times before I'm happy with it. If you want dimension, you can always put it on foam tape. So this has a foam in between so you can get it elevated. So if you're looking to make it something a little bit dimensional, you can use the foam tape. Okay. So those are the main tools that I have. And then for tonight, I'm just going to use, because we're going to be doing a photo montage practice, and I'm going to be using just this dollar store composition notebook. And I've gessoed one side and I haven't finished. I'm going to probably decorate the front at some point, but I've used it for a variety of other collage. And I've gessoed the pages. I've glued some pages together to make them a little bit thicker. So if you do want to use this as an art journal, you are going to probably want to, adhere some of the pages together so that they're a little bit more durable to handle a wet medium. But it's a lot of fun, and it's no fear because it's really a cheap journal. So you can have a lot of fun with it without worrying about it. This I gessoed, and then sometimes I had some extra paint on my brush, and so I would just, run it in here. So I have these fun pages ready to go. You'll notice it's really wrinkly, and that's because gluing them together with Mod Podge or matte medium, it's going to wrinkle the paper because this paper is just really thin. It's not durable. And I don't mind that texture, but if you do, you're not going to want to put it on thin paper because you're going to get a lot of warping. You're going to want to go to maybe at least a watercolor 140-pound paper. So, but this is sort of my experiment here. I just was, again, just putting extra paint down. And then I haven't painted or glued down any of these pages. I'm starting sort of from the back. Now, this was the project that I just did recently for some of the pictures that I have in the activity that we're going to be working on. And so this is just all from a Costco, my Costco catalog, putting it together. And this is where I took those glasses and I changed them out. And then this kind of reminded me of like a little hair ribbon. This was that plum that I cut up and I did the fracture. And then I put the other piece of it over here as jewelry. So, and then this is was a roasted turkey that I just cut out a circle from. And then I embellished her with some gold gel pen. So it's just a lot of fun. And like I said, it's just in here. So there's no risk of, wasting any materials because everything I already had. So I'm going to be playing around with a page in here, and I might even use one of these pages that I already got started, maybe. So we'll see. Haven't decided yet. But the first step to this process, and we're going to do, like I said, a photo montage exercise. So grab a few of your materials, whether it's magazines or books or ephemera, whatever you have around. And the first step is going to be just to fan through your materials and quickly, don't sit there. We're not, obviously we don't have a lot of time, but even if you're doing this for yourself, you want to go towards something that attracts you right away. So look through quickly and then select 5 elements, 5 pages that have something on it that appeals to you. And I'm going to be doing the same thing. So I'm going to grab, I just have, this is, I don't know what this is. This is, could be Costco. Chances are, I don't have a lot of magazines. So I am, I end up just going to my recycling. Now, the holidays are coming. I kind of like those. Okay, so I'm just gonna pick it. If I'm drawn to it, you could go through one time and then go back and select things, but I'm just gonna pull pages that quickly draw my attention for the sake of time. This doesn't have a lot of great things to choose from, but maybe some of this jewelry. Although I kind of like that. Oh. I'm just really quickly looking through, and if something jumps out at me, it's kind of interesting. I don't know. I don't know. And I want you to have like 5 things. Now you could tear a bunch of pages and then choose 5 from that. That's fine. Because I'm just kind of pulling them as I go along, but kind of like that too. Now I have to share with you guys, and I don't know if I'm gonna ever use this or not. I'm still trying to figure this out, but I have a whole bin of vintage materials. You can use these kinds of things too. This is an old diary from it's like, 1929. I have some old journals that are this was all from a farm my ex family had. This is 1958. I can use the blank pages, or I can use pages that have something on it. I'm not using these tonight because I'm doing the photo montage, but this would be stuff that I would use in a, different type of collage. But these are really cool. And sometimes there's little ephemera in there, like there's appointment pages and receipts and things like that. It's in the other book. This one is from the 50s. It's 1941. But the coolest thing that I have, and again, I don't know if I can use it or not, but I have a Christmas ladies' home journal from December 1908. You guys, I should have gloves on. I mean, so I have some Life magazines from when Kennedy was shot. Like, I have these things that I don't know if I should sell them or use them. Like, I'm torn because I don't know if, so I have to figure out. I don't want to tear up something that has a collector value of. Then I also have this fun arts and crafts design book, and it has some great pictures, like furniture and things like that, like architectural interest designs. So I thought that would be really fun for some photos. And this one I don't feel quite as bad. It was $4 at a thrift store. Probably not as many people looking to hold on to this, but you can, as you can see, there's lots of fun, interesting things you can tap into for your material. All right, let's see what this is. Holiday stuff. These little ads aren't really great. I like when they have bigger pictures. This one doesn't really have too many pictures. So. I have slim pickings for my here's an actual magazine that I got. I think that was my mom. So I do love how Country Living has these sort of montages of monochromatic things on a page. Like, I don't know, there's just something that's really clean and just relaxing about monochromatic. So I feel like I'm kind of, I like that too. See, I've just attracted to beige on beige. It's kind of boring, but it's really something quiet and calming about it. Like, that's a really cool thing. But I'm finding a theme of white. I guess because it feels wintry. Aw. I feel like that burn. Well, I'm taking out way more than 5, but I do keep these little containers, and I'll show you those in a second, where if I pull something out that I'm interested in, I don't end up using it, I will put it in. Oh, that's kind of, I like that even better. Everything in here is white. And I don't know where I'm going with this yet, you know, like I'm not really, except for that it seems to be, I'm going with white. Seems to be the only thing that, ooh, okay, I love him. He's the star of my show, I think, right there. All right. And this seems, it's going with white, and this is kind of black and white, so maybe that's my theme. All right, I'm just gonna peek. Now, like I said, if I have extra stuff, I have these boxes of collage material. This is just things that are words. So I have one that's words. I have one that is art scraps. So things that are either, you know, partial things, maybe it's die cuts that I've done and I haven't made something with. This is one of those styrofoam cup butterflies. I made these from styrofoam cups. And this is from a Coke can, but I haven't used them yet. So I just put them in here until I'm ready to use. So when I'm looking for fun things to add, I can tap into this little box of partially made things. And then I also have just a general collage one. It's just like pages that spoke to me for whatever reason, or I've cut out from them already, things like that. So any of these that I'm not going to use, I can. Now I know I'm going to use him. And he's really big, so I'm not going to have a lot of, I don't know if I'm going to have a lot of room around him. So we'll have to see. Maybe I'll use that. These are all big things. I'm going to get rid of those. And maybe I'll take something that's smaller from this. And maybe this. And this. Okay, let's do that. 5. I want 5 pages. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And maybe I'll just use, okay, there, I have 5 pages. So once you've chosen 5 pages, just look at the elements that you were drawn to and what is it about those elements that attracted you? Just something to think about. Was it the color? Was it the shape? Was it the vibe that it gave off? What the subject was? Could be, did it have some symbolism? Maybe something that was very unique. Like this, I really liked how they have these people that are kind of walking up this building. And I tended to be drawn towards sort of white and silver, like cool. Like I guess I'm in the winter spirit today because I've been kind of chilly. So him, I just love him, just how he is. So, but I'm gonna somehow find a way to put these elements from these 5 pages together. The next step is to kind of tear out the elements that you like about each page. Now I'm just gonna do a rough tear. Like I'm not gonna do a fine cut around him, but I just want to sort of get as close to him just so that I can play around with him in a project. So I'm not ready to necessarily fussy cut around the whole thing, but I just want to, I like that tree, but I'm not going to use it because I can't use everything. At least I don't think so. I'm going to tear around that tree to make sure I don't ruin the tree in case I decide to use it. But I don't know if I'll use it where it's at. All right. I'm just basically tearing away the things that I don't want as much as possible in my project. Don't want any of these words. Now, one easy way to tear in a straight line is using a ruler. So if I really want to be careful about getting that edge, I can use the ruler to tear. I think I want to keep his body. I don't know, maybe it's just going to be his head. I haven't decided yet, but right now, all I'm trying to do is make him a little smaller so I can work with him and kind of getting an idea of what I want to do for this photo montage. And you'll understand why in a little bit. Because if I have a whole page, it's really hard to play around with other things that I'm going to have. All right, I really like that, but I feel like he's going to take up a lot of the page. So I really don't know if I'm going to have room for much of it, but I like these little horns. Those are small. And I'm going to use my scissors because I may want to use this cabinet and I don't want to tear. I want to get around that cabinet and get the antlers and keep the cabinet whole. So in that case, I'm using my scissors. And you could even cut with scissors, just, just around the element. I might want to use the bottom. Hi, just a reminder to please hit the subscribe or like button if you find my content helpful. Thanks. Let's get back to the program. Yeah, I have an idea already. I think I'm going to take this. We'll see. All right, I want this maybe. And I think maybe this. And then I really like this little unrelated, but a little compass. And I feel like this would have to be, well, I'm just gonna, I don't know what part of that I can use, but maybe that's gonna be part of my background. And then last but not least, I like these little trees. So now I have enough of pieces that I can play around, and maybe I'll use this background or maybe I won't, but now just play around with, after you do the rough trim, just play around with these elements on your page. Move them in different orientations, different positions. Maybe this could be in the background. Would I like those horns kind of there, maybe? And I feel like those are his feet. Could kind of work. And then his third eye. And then maybe these trees could just be along the outside, around the outside. That could be hanging from his ear. I don't know. So now I have a kind of a rough idea of where I want to go with it. And I know what elements I want to keep of each thing and which ones I don't. I have a better idea. So now I can start doing actual details, cutting out the details. And in this, well, I'll do it a couple different ways so I can show you. I know for sure that I don't want that blue sky, and I don't even think I want these trees there. So and I like to pull the blade towards me. So what I'll do is I'll move the piece, and then so I can always be, rather than trying to, move my hand all over the place, I'll just move the item. So I'm just gonna try to, I can secure it from the top. Don't ever cut towards your finger. You do want to have a pretty sharp blade. And I started thinking, well, maybe I could even trim that down further. We'll see. It might change. Just let your intuition guide you. Now, okay. Well, let's just start with that. It's cleaned up. I may not use the whole thing. And then I'll clean him up. And I'll just use something different just to show you a little bit of everything. Now it's hard to see, but he's got his body kind of comes around like this. And I think I want to use his body. I'm not positive. And I want to kind of give it a look of hair. So I'm going to just do this sort of choppy cut. So I'm just trying, see how I'm trying to create this jagged look just to keep those, just to make it look like little hairs. There we go. Doesn't matter if there's an actual hair there or not. I'm just trying to give it the element of little hairs. I like that. Oh, I missed his body there because white on white on white. Okay, that's okay. I can always glue it down. I haven't even decided for sure if I'm going to use it, but okay, there he's got little wispy ear hairs. One of the things I like to do, a little bit of a shortcut, is to use punches. Trying to find one that's just the right size. That one looks too big. Otherwise, I can just try to cut a circle, but that's not my strong suit. So, oh, that one looks pretty good. It's just, let's see, that's a 1 inch and that's a 1 1/4. I need a 1 1/8. I think a 1 1/8 would be perfect, but I think I could go with this 1 inch. Let's put this guy out first. Okay, now I'm going to use my fussy cut. I hope you guys are doing something and playing, because I hope you guys are just seeing how much fun this is. as it comes together, and just, not knowing where it's going, but just seeing it develop just through your artistic intuition. And I like having a challenge, like, okay, I have to pick them and then I have to make them go together. So I don't have a choice. You can do it a different way. You can say, okay, I'm gonna start something and then I want something that looks like this, and then start looking through your materials for that perfect something that you have in mind. That's just following your intuition. But I like having the challenge because I think it pushes me. So both are good approaches, whether you want to just let your intuition tell you what the next step is, or you want to challenge yourself to make, limited materials work. Both are great exercises. Okay, so I want this to be part of the cow. These are, so I'm going to bring, need to bring the cow size down. So I'm just going to trim. I want the cow body to go right into the furniture. So I'm just trimming it to fit. Well, let's see if that's going to fit on my page. Check how it goes on my page. I think this page is maybe too busy. I just want to blank. I'm just going to go to one of these pages. Like that. Okay, maybe we'll see. Cut out these guys. And I like to do, whether it's this or different kinds of art, my favorite way to do art is to do a portion of it and then walk away and then come back to it another day or hours later or something like that. I rarely, except for when I'm maybe doing a workshop, and even then I sometimes come back to it the next day and do some more things, because I like to look at it from a different perspective, different lighting or whatever. And then I'll see something every time I come back to it. I'll see something different. So, based on whatever my mood, or just having a minute away from it. So, especially with embellishing, I did on the project that I showed you earlier, I did a little bit something here, and then I added a little bit more to the earrings, or I added another line here, or, so I love to step away and then come back and see what kind of new ideas come to mind. I'm wondering if these could be like little icicles instead of trees. I think they can. They can be whatever I want, right? Creative license, folks. You can make it whatever you want. Yeah, I think I'm just going to trim the face. I'm just going to trim the face. That's why you leave some parts there, because then you have choice. Because once you trim it, then you don't have a choice anymore. So it's better to decide, have the option. Yeah, I like that better. Kind of like that. But I never like to make the first decision. I always like to kind of move things around a little bit and try out little different perspectives. And you can take photograph, try different things and take like a photograph. So far I like that the best. And then see, you can even just take photographs and let that be your art and not even ever glue it down. Just play, have a play session. That's really zero risk, right? Okay, I think I'm gonna go with that. Now I am gonna glue it down. And you have to kind of think about how things are glued down, because this is on top of this. So I have to glue down this first. So I'm just going to scoot this up and get this glued down. I'm just going to use this. Make sure to get close to the edges, because those are what peel up first. And I like to use just an old credit card, my old standby, kind of press it down. Especially if you're using any kind of wet medium, you want to get like air bubbles out and stuff like that. Okay, now this goes on top of this, but underneath this guy, so this can go next. Right about there. And like I said, I could take a picture of it and then look back at my photo if I have to move everything. I think I'm going to go with that. All right, now I'm going to glue Move these guys over. His headdress. And these guys are going to go under his ears. So I'm going to make sure to leave under part of his ears a little open. And I want to make sure I have room for my, okay. Judy, I hope you like your birthday cow. He's an Egyptian king. He's Egyptian royalty.
You're making it an utterly wonderful birthday.
Yay. Utterly. I love that.
Oh, I'm glad you got it.
I did. Okay, let's see. North, south. Okay, get it right, Shauna. Let's see. How was this again? I think this was up here. This one above there. It's kind of like a little medallion hanging down. There we go. Okay, so there's my collage part. And now I can do some embellishment. And of course, I've got sticky glue on my fingers. Okay. And let's see, what do I want to do? I think I want to use, you know, my favorite thing to use is indigo. So I think I'm going to just create maybe some shadows around it. Although I feel like, well, I think I'm going to use bark. Bark is brown because it's got a lot of these brown tones in it, and that'll keep with it. So I think I'm going to say this is the shadow side. And this is the Derwent Inktense, so this is water soluble. So I'm just laying down the pigment first, and then I'm going to wet it and see what happens on the shiny paper. And you know, this isn't watercolor paper, so it'll be what it'll be, but just see what happens. And I'm going to use just a water brush. And then do I want to add a little, we have some gold accents in there, so I can add a little gold accents, even though that's silver, but maybe we'll just make it gold. No, Pharaoh cow. Okay, oh my gosh, we're almost at 9. All right, I have to step away from the golden Pharaoh cow. Even though I could keep having fun with embellishments. Okay. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Healing Art After Hours. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, share, comment if you find this content helpful. Thank you so much. And as always, happy creating. Bye.